Trucks are built to move heavy loads across long distances, but when something goes wrong, the results can be horrifying. These aren't just road accidents, they're real-life nightmares caught in motion. In this video, we'll uncover 5 of the most disturbing truck crash deaths ever recorded. Each story is violent, unexpected, and leaves behind questions that still haunt those who witnessed them. It was April 10, 2014, just before 6 p.m. on a remote part of Interstate 5 near Orland, California. A charter bus carrying 44 high school students from Southern California was heading north. These students were traveling to Humboldt State University for a 2-day college tour. Many came from low-income families and would have been the first in their families to attend college. At the same time, a FedEx truck was traveling south on the same road. Suddenly, the truck crossed a 60-foot-wide grassy median, sideswiped a Nissan Altima, and crashed head-on into the charter bus. The impact was violent. Both vehicles immediately caught fire. Witnesses said the explosion was so large it looked like a bomb had gone off. Thick black smoke rose into the sky. Panic broke out inside the bus as flames quickly spread. 17-year-old Jonathan Gutierrez had been asleep when it happened. He later recounted on Twitter that he had been asleep when, in an instant, he found himself leaping out for his life. He sustained bruises, a split eyebrow, and lost all his belongings. But he survived. Others were not as lucky. Ismael Jimenez, an 18-year-old from Animo Inglewood Charter High School, tried to help others escape. As smoke filled the bus, he broke a window near the front and started pulling students out. He saved several people before he was overcome by the flames. Denise Gomez, also 18 and from the same school, lost her life in the crash. She had been the Earth Club president on the varsity soccer team and an editor of the yearbook. Like Jimenez, she had dreams of being the first in her family to go to college. 3 more students were lost. Adrian Castro, 19, from El Monte High School, Marisa Serrato, 17, from Norte Vista High School in Riverside, and Jennifer Bonilla from Dorsey High School in Los Angeles. Jennifer had a twin sister on another bus that arrived safely at Humboldt. Memorials were set up at their schools. Flowers, candles, and chalk messages lined the sidewalks in tribute. 3 adults also lost their lives. Arthur Arzola, a 26-year-old admissions counselor from Humboldt, died later at the hospital. Michael Myvet, 29, and his fiancée Madison Haywood were volunteer chaperones. This was their second year helping with the outreach program. In total, 10 people passed away, 5 students, 3 chaperones, and both drivers. Around 30 others were hurt, many with burns or broken bones. 1 survivor was said to be on fire when help arrived. The fire was so intense that some victims could only be identified through dental records or DNA. The FedEx truck driver was 32-year-old Tim Evans. He had no record of substance use and his health appeared fine. He had been on duty for 8 hours and had rested the night before. Still, the California Highway Patrol ruled that he made an unsafe move by crossing the median, though they could not confirm why it happened. Joe and Bonnie Duran, in the car that was sideswiped, said they saw a fire coming from the truck before the crash, but investigators found no proof to support this. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, launched a full investigation. One issue was that the highway had no median barrier. Federal rules only required barriers if the median was under 50 feet wide. This one was 60. Experts said a barrier might have stopped the truck from crossing over. Another focus was fire safety. The bus had no fire suppression system, which was not required at the time. The NTSB had been pushing for safety upgrades for years, especially after a deadly 2005 bus fire, but little progress had been made. New laws in 2012 asked the Department of Transportation to test safety features, but by 2014, no rules had changed. Many believe more lives could have been saved if safety systems were in place. In the end, the surviving students stayed in dorms with counseling support. The investigation left one major question unanswered. Why did the truck cross the median? 10 lives were lost. A trip meant to inspire hope became one of the deadliest road tragedies in California's recent history. It was May 4, 2013, on Interstate 20 in Georgia. Marianne Carth was on a long drive from North Carolina to Texas for a family wedding. With her were 3 of her 9 children. Caleb sat in the front seat, while Analia and Mary were in the back. Road trips were normal for the Karth family. 17-year-old Analia was quiet, creative, and loved to write. She would have turned 18 soon. 13-year-old Mary had a big personality. She wore 2 braids and always made others laugh. Caleb, calm and thoughtful, sat beside his mother. He would survive the terrible crash that happened next. Around noon, traffic began to slow down. Marianne tapped the brakes and left a safe distance between her car and the one in front. But a truck pulling a car hauler behind them didn't slow down. It slammed into the back of their Ford Crown Victoria, pushing the car sideways into traffic. Another vehicle struck them, and their car was forced under a tractor trailer in front of them. That trailer had a rear underride guard, a metal bar meant to stop smaller vehicles from sliding underneath. But during the crash, it broke off. The back of the Karth's car went straight under the trailer and was crushed. Analia and Mary were sitting there. Analia died instantly from the impact. Mary was still alive but badly injured. She was rushed to the hospital but passed away 4 days later on May 8th. Marianne survived with injuries. Caleb had a concussion but was released from the hospital that same day. The rear part of the car was destroyed. Emergency workers had to cut off Mary's braids to reach her injuries. It was the first time her hair had ever been cut. Marianne later kept those braids and brought them to safety events, using them to show what her family had lost. The truck driver who caused the crash was found unconscious. Investigators said he had drifted out of his lane and lost control. He pleaded guilty to charges related to the crash. His commercial license was suspended for 2 years. The crash lasted only seconds. But the aftermath would change the Karth family forever. Marianne and her husband Jerry began asking why the underride guard had failed. It had met federal safety standards set in 1998, but those rules didn't include strength testing. In real crashes, guards like these often break apart. Marianne later said that if it had been stronger and better attached, her daughters might still have been alive. The Karths pushed for change, urging trailer makers and trucking firms to improve underride protection, and some did. Stoughton Trailers added stronger guards in 2015. Vanguard National made upgrades after hearing from customers. J.B. Hunt ordered trailers with better safety features. These changes weren't required by law. Families like the Karths made them happen. Still, federal rules move slowly. A proposal was made in 2014, but stronger regulations didn't take effect until 2022. Marianne and another mother, Lois Durso, pushed for more. They met with lawmakers, filed petitions, and worked to pass a bill requiring stronger rear and side guards. Only parts of their bill made it into the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure bill. Side guards remain unrequired in the United States. Many trucks lag behind modern standards, and with only 17 states tracking underride crashes, data is limited. For the Karths, though, it's not about numbers. In 2023, Marianne joined the Federal Advisory Committee on Underride Protection. At home, a bench with sculptures of Analia and Mary honors their memory, and she's even urged the Department of Transportation to install a memorial bell for lives lost in underride crashes. Even now, crashes like this still happen, but Marianne and Lois haven't stopped, because they know what it's like to lose everything in just seconds. It was April 6th, 2018, on a quiet highway near Armley, Saskatchewan. The skies were clear and the roads dry. A bus carrying 28 people, players, coaches, and staff from the Humboldt Broncos junior hockey team, was on its way north on Highway 35 to Nipawin for a playoff game. In Humboldt, a small town of fewer than 6,000 people, the Broncos weren't just a team, they were part of the community. The players lived with local families and studied at nearby schools. Their home arena, the Elgar Peterson Arena, was a place of pride. That day, after losing Game 4 in triple overtime, they were hoping to win Game 5 and keep their playoff run alive. Driving the bus was Glenn Dorkson, a respected and experienced driver. Spirits were high, but around 5 p.m., just outside Tisdale, everything changed. At the intersection of Highway 35 and Highway 335, a place locals call Armley Corner, the Broncos bus crossed paths with a transport truck. That truck was driven by 29-year-old Jaskirat Singh Sidhu, a new driver from India who had only been in the trucking industry a short time. He was hauling bales of peat moss and was supposed to stop at a flashing stop sign on Highway 335. But he didn't. Driving around 100 kilometers per hour, Sidhu went through the stop sign without slowing down. The bus struck the truck's lead trailer. The impact was violent and sudden. The front of the bus was torn off. Both vehicles landed in a nearby snowy field. Peat moss was scattered across the area. Some passengers were thrown from the bus. Others were trapped inside. It was quiet, with only the wind and faint cries from the injured breaking the silence. Ryan Strashnitsky, a defenseman, blacked out and woke up lying in the snow, unable to move his legs. Around him were teammates, some alive, some not. He saw Nick Shumlansky bleeding and moaning. Defenseman Logan Boulet was nearby. He did not survive. 14 people died at the scene. Emergency crews arrived quickly. 13 were rushed to the hospital, but 2 later passed away. In total, 16 lives were lost. 10 players aged 16 to 21, including team captain Logan Schatz and the youngest, Adam Harold. Others who died included coaches, staff, and the bus driver Glenn Dirksen. One painful mistake happened after the crash. Defenseman Xavier Labelle was wrongly identified as Parker Tobin. Both had dyed blonde hair and playoff beards. Labelle had no ID and was unconscious. It wasn't until he woke up in the hospital and said his name that the mistake was corrected. Across Canada, tributes poured in. Wayne Gretzky posted, leaders like Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump offered condolences, NHL teams wore Broncos jerseys, and messages came from as far as Ukraine. 2 days later, thousands gathered for a memorial in Humboldt, with others watching from schools and churches. Team pastor Sean Brandow, in tears, said he didn't know why it happened but shared in their grief. The crash spurred change. New warning signs and rumble strips at the intersection, mandatory truck driver training in 2019, and seatbelts required on new highway buses. Investigators found Sidhu had broken several safety rules before the crash, including driving too long and not keeping proper records. He was distracted by a loose tarp, but wasn't under the influence of anything. In January 2019, he pleaded guilty to 29 charges and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. In 2022, he was granted parole, but as a permanent resident, he faced deportation. In May 2024, he was officially ordered to return to India. His lawyer said they would appeal, especially since Sidhu's son, born after the crash, has serious health issues and may not get proper care in India. Reactions to the deportation were mixed. Some families supported it. Others, like Evan Thomas's father, said they didn't think it was necessary. Ryan Strashnitsky, now paralyzed, said he wished Sidhu peace, human to human. The crash took 16 lives and changed many more. One mistake at a stop sign led to years of pain and recovery, and even now the story isn't over. It was April 25, 2019, in Lakewood, Colorado. Traffic on Interstate 70 had slowed down because of an earlier school bus crash near the Ward Road exit. Vehicles were backed up for miles with only one lane open. Most drivers had no idea that something much worse was about to happen. Around 4:30 p.m., 23-year-old Rogel Lazaro Aguilera Medeiros was driving an 18-wheeler eastbound on Interstate 70. His truck, loaded with lumber, was coming down a steep mountain stretch near Genesee. Aguilera Medeiros, originally from Cuba, was living in Texas and working for a Houston trucking company called Castellano 03, Trucking LLC. As he moved downhill, witnesses noticed something was wrong. His truck was moving dangerously fast, over 85 miles per hour. Smoke was coming from the wheels. As he passed the first runaway truck ramp designed to stop trucks with brake problems, he didn't take it. He also passed several exits and another ramp, still without stopping. At that point, traffic ahead had nearly stopped because of the earlier crash. Aguilera Medeiros' truck, which had lost braking power, continued to pick up speed. He swerved around cars, nearly forcing some off the road. One driver live-streamed as the semi sped by near Colorado Mills Parkway. Moments later, the truck slammed into 28 vehicles, including 3 other semis. The crash triggered a chain reaction. One truck was carrying gasoline and another had mattresses. Combined with Aguilera Medeiros' load of lumber, the impact caused a massive fire. The flames spread quickly. Thick black smoke covered the area and the explosion could be heard from blocks away. Emergency crews were called at 4:50 p.m., but by the time they arrived, the damage had already been done. 4 men lost their lives: Doyle Harrison, 61, William Bailey, 67, Stanley Politano, 69, and Miguel Angel Lamas Arellano, just 24 years old. 6 others were seriously injured. Among them was an emergency medical technician, Malaya Harsh, who was pregnant. She later said she had feared for her baby's life, but both survived. Firefighters worked for hours. The fire wasn't fully out until nearly 10 p.m. The highway stayed closed until the evening of the next day, April 26th. Aguilera Maderos wasn't hurt and didn't try to flee. He was arrested the next morning and taken to Jefferson County Jail. At first, he was charged with vehicular manslaughter, but as the investigation continued, prosecutors filed 40 charges, including vehicular assault and multiple counts of first-degree assault with extreme indifference. He explained that his brakes had failed and that he had never intended to cause harm. In court, he broke down in tears and apologized, saying that he had never wanted to hurt anyone and that it had been an accident. He had no criminal history, was married, and had a young son. But prosecutors argued that he had ignored several warning signs and emergency exits. They believed his actions were reckless. They also pointed to his employer's poor safety record. Castellano 03. Trucking had over 30 safety violations in 2 years, including hiring drivers who couldn't read English, an issue on a highway where all warning signs are in English. His trial began in September 2021. A jury found him guilty of 27 charges in October. In December, Judge Bruce Jones sentenced him to 110 years in prison, saying he had no choice because of Colorado's sentencing laws. Even though he believed the sentence was too long, the law required it. The decision caused public outrage. Millions signed a petition asking for a shorter sentence. Many believed the trucking company was more at fault than the driver. Supporters said Aguilera Maderos was young and unprepared and didn't deserve to spend his life in prison. On December 30th, 2021, Colorado Governor Jared Polis reduced his sentence to 10 years after the district attorney requested a resentencing. Aguilera Maderos is now serving that time. He says he lives with guilt every day and often wonders why he survived when others didn't. Investigators confirmed no drugs or alcohol were involved, but the crash remains one of the worst in Lakewood's history. Since then, Colorado officials have worked on safety upgrades, including a new runaway truck ramp near where the crash happened. The goal is simple: prevent this from ever happening again. It was June 7th, 2014, on the New Jersey Turnpike. A group of comedians was on their way home after a performance at the Dover Downs Hotel and Casino in Delaware. Among them was 62-year-old James McNair, better known as Jimmy Mack. He was a veteran comedian, writer, and a close friend of Tracy Morgan. That night, he had joined the group to support Morgan's comedy tour, but they never made it home. Just after 1 a.m., their limousine van was hit from behind by a Walmart-operated tractor-trailer. The truck driver had reportedly been awake for over 28 hours and failed to slow down. The crash caused a 6-vehicle pileup. Only one person lost their life. James McNair was killed on impact. Born on October 1, 1951 in Peekskill, New York, McNair had worn many hats. He worked at a homeless shelter, volunteered at church, cooked at the Salvation Army, and ran community events. He even organized a comedy showcase called the original Uncle Jimmy Mack's Amateur Hour, giving unknown comics a chance to perform. Eventually, McNair left construction work to focus on comedy. It didn't make him rich, but it led him to people like Tracy Morgan. The two met at Harlem's Uptown Comedy Club in the early 1990s. As Morgan's career took off, McNair stayed close, helping with notes and even writing for Saturday Night Live as a freelancer. The group had been riding in a customized Mercedes-Benz Sprinter limo van. Alongside McNair and Morgan were Artie Fuqua, Jeff Malaya, and others. As they traveled north on the turnpike, Kevin Roper, the Walmart truck driver, had already been on the road too long, driving overnight from Georgia without rest. At 1 a.m. near Cranberry Township, the truck slammed into the back of the limo. The van crumpled from the impact and the crash led to a massive pileup. Inside, the passengers were thrown forward. Most weren't wearing seatbelts. The van had been modified and its emergency exits were either blocked or jammed. A plywood wall separated the driver from the passenger area, making escape even harder. McNair had been sitting near the back, the exact point of impact. He died at the scene. He left behind 2 children. Tracy Morgan survived, but he was severely hurt. He was placed in a medically induced coma. His face was broken in multiple places, along with his ribs and leg. He also suffered a serious brain injury. When Morgan woke up 8 days later, he couldn't see, walk, or speak properly. He stayed in rehab for 2 months, relearning how to talk and move again. His mental state during recovery was unstable. He later shared that he went through depression and mood swings. One of his upcoming shows had to be put on hold indefinitely. Morgan and the other survivors filed a lawsuit against Walmart. It was settled privately, but reports suggested the payout reached around $90 million, one of the largest settlements for a personal injury case in the United States. Walmart's insurance companies, however, pushed back. They accused Walmart of settling too quickly without their input and demanded full access to Morgan's medical and financial records. They questioned whether the injuries truly matched the settlement. The legal battle between Walmart and its insurers dragged on for years. The NTSB later confirmed the crash was preventable. The driver had broken hours of service rules and sped, while the van's design and lack of seatbelt use worsened the outcome. He took a plea deal and avoided prison, but concerns over fatigue, safety rules, and oversight persisted. Each year, Tracy Morgan honors McNair's memory. In a Netflix special, Morgan shared how seeing his baby daughter walk for the first time gave him the strength to fight through recovery. His wife later encouraged him to return to comedy, and he did. But McNair never got that chance. His legacy lives through the people he helped, especially Tracy Morgan. At a later performance, Morgan left an empty chair on stage in honor of his friend. James McNair was buried in Cortlandt Manor, New York. His family received part of Walmart's settlement. But the crash left behind more than lawsuits and headlines. It left a lasting impact that's still being felt today.